Karl-Anthony Towns had himself a career night so far against the Spurs yesterday. Towns dropped 60, that's 6-0, and grabbed 17 boards. Shot 7 of 11 from three. He is the reigning three-point contest champion, after all. Look, Karl-Anthony Towns, talent-wise, is there with Embiid and Jokic and everyone, all the bigs, but he hasn't seemed to have the same hunger as those guys yet to be the very best. Maybe that is changing. The Lakers, meantime, lost to the Raptors last night to fall 10 games under 500. LA has another slow start, 12 points in the first quarter, and naturally, LeBron is frustrated. Brian Windhorst is here bringing the Windy City Heat. That's a movie he just refuses to watch, in spite of me telling him on the record it's the greatest comedy ever made. Windy, have the Lakers hit a new low after last night's loss to the Raptors? And what does this all mean for Frank Vogel?
No, I mean, they've been at a low for months now. And for Frank Vogel, I mean, they decided they didn't want to be a Frank Vogel team last offseason when they traded away all of the defensive players from the team that was #1 in defense under Vogel. I mean, yes, they have been terrible as a unit defensively this year, and some of that is Vogel's fault, but it's kind of like taking away a chef's pots and pans and then complaining that he burned your dinner. He gave him an old team that didn't have the institutional knowledge that he installed. This is what you've seen. The last two nights, they have lost the game in the first quarter because they cannot stop anybody, and Vogel will take the fall for it, but it is not totally his fault.
Not to mention AD's injuries don't even allow him to be a defensive eraser to make up for some of that stuff. Draymond Green returned last night, Windy, on Steph Curry's birthday. Now, with his crime partner back, Steph gave the Wizards 47. By the way, Steph's 34. That used to be old. Windy, listen to what Draymond had to say post-game about the Warriors' seeding heading into the playoffs.
Obviously, the 2 seed will be great, but we're not chasing it. We're going to make sure we do everything we can to stay healthy coming down the stretch. Not going to make any bonehead decisions trying to chase the 2 seed. Whether we're 2 seed or 3 seed, we're going to win a championship, so it don't really matter.
Windy, do the Warriors need the 2 seed to come out of the West, or are they best positioned right now as the 3?
No, they don't need it, but I'll tell you what, I would want it because I don't want to go up against Ja Morant when he has some momentum. They go on a 4-game road trip starting next week, and it ends in Memphis on the second night of a back-to-back in a game that could end up being really important for how that 2-3 breaks down. But more important than that seed is Draymond Green. And you saw what Draymond Green did for this team last night. It was a huge difference. He and Steph shared the court for 15 minutes together. In those 15 minutes, prepare yourself for this statistic. In those 15 minutes, Steph scored 41 points.
It's unbelievable.
That is a welcome back birthday present to yourself if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, you want to know why Steph was in a big shooting slump earlier? Draymond Green is the key to Steph and Draymond are the irreducible components to the Warriors as we know them. Right, by the way, did you say the Warriors' schedule ends on the second of back-to-back at Memphis?
They go on a 4-game road trip to the East, and they've got some tough games. They play in Miami, but circle the one in Memphis, second night of a back-to-back. We'll see how much they care about that matchup because they're going to have to rest Klay Thompson in one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if they rest Klay the first game to be loaded for bear in a game that could end up deciding the seed between these two teams. That's, I believe, a week from Monday.
To my mind, that actually is enormous pressure on the Grizzlies, who are the upstart team, because the Warriors will be expected to lose that game if they're resting Klay, if it's a second of back-to-back and a 4-game road trip on the road, all that stuff. So the Grizzlies, if they don't win that game, that's a confidence killer heading into the playoffs when the Warriors are the team you're trying to beat. Did Curry's big performance, we know it has to do with Dre's return, obviously. Where does Klay fit into all this, given the fact that so often it's the Splash Brothers, Steph and Klay, but it's really Steph and Dre, and then Klay is the kind of added element that makes it really, really tough. Where does Klay fit into this right now?
Yeah, so they're trying to make things easier for Klay and Steph. They just put Jordan Poole back in the starting lineup. He's been in a slump, and it seems to have re-energized him. And going to that 3-guard lineup which is really what I think they're most potent. That lineup going in is what triggered Klay's 38-point blowout over the weekend against the Bucks. So they now are going to a 3-guard starting lineup, which is the right way to play. They're bringing back their facilitator, Draymond Green. And as early as tomorrow, you could see the activation of James Wiseman for the first time all year as they bring in that athletic big man that could help them in certain matchups. So while I think the Suns are awesome and I would pick them as the favorites in the West right now, the Warriors are coming. You saw them just these last couple of games starting to feel themselves.
41 points Steph dropped. In the 15 minutes he played with Draymond. That is another for the second consecutive day. My mind is blown by a stat on this show. Thanks, Wendy. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.